My husband slammed a contract on the table and said, "Sign it or get out." The entire room went silent. 30 guests at our anniversary dinner just froze. Forks stopped moving. Conversations died. I looked down at the papers, then back at him. "You can't be serious." He didn't blink. Then his lawyer leaned forward from the chair beside him, adjusted his glasses, and said, "And you agree to these terms, Mrs. Whitmore? My name is Cassandra Whitmore. Amy, 34 years old. I'm a freelance interior designer. I work from a small home office surrounded by fabric samples, mood boards, and color swatches that most people in my family think are a hobby. I've spent the last 9 years being the supportive wife. The one who shows up early to set the table. The one who remembers birthdays, organizes holidays, and never complains when the credit goes to someone else. My husband, Garrett, is a real estate attorney. His family has money. Old money. The kind that comes with opinions about who belongs and who doesn't. I married into that family knowing I wasn't their first choice. I wasn't wealthy. I didn't come from the right neighborhood or the right last name, but I had something they didn't expect. I had eyes that noticed everything and a habit of writing things down. My dream was simple. I wanted to own my own design studio someday. A small space with big windows where clients could sit with me and build something beautiful together. Garrett used to say he supported that dream. He used to say a lot of things. Over the years, I started feeling invisible. Not just at family gatherings, but in my own kitchen, in my own bedroom, in conversations where my opinion was requested and then immediately ignored. People assumed I was naive. They assumed I was soft. They looked at me and saw someone who would never push back. They were wrong. I just hadn't pushed yet. If your spouse or family ever doubted your worth, hit subscribe. Share your story in the comments. I want to hear it. Let's prove them wrong together. Click hype if you've ever felt overlooked but never defeated. The dinner was held at Garrett's parents' estate. A long dining room with dark wood panels and cream-colored curtains that smelled like lavender and old furniture polish, crystal glasses lined up in rows, candles flickering on every surface. It looked beautiful. It felt like a trap. 30 people were seated around an extended table. Garrett's parents at the head, his brother and sister-in-law across from us, cousins, aunts, uncles, a few of my friends scattered near the far end, almost like afterthoughts. We were supposed to be celebrating 10 years of marriage. 10 years. I had picked out my dress 3 weeks in advance. A deep emerald green. I thought it mattered. Halfway through the main course, Garrett stood up. He tapped his glass with a butter knife. The room quieted. I smiled, expecting a toast. Instead, he reached under his chair and pulled out a manila envelope. He opened it, slid a stack of papers across the tablecloth toward me, and said, "I've had this drawn up. Sign it tonight, or I'm done with you." His voice was flat, rehearsed, like he had practiced in the mirror. I looked down at the document. It was a post-nuptial agreement, 15 pages, typed in small font, full of legal language I couldn't process in front of 30 staring faces. My hands went cold. My chest tightened. The sound of someone's fork scraping a plate echoed in my ears like a nail on glass. Guests whispered. Garrett's mother looked down at her napkin, but she didn't look surprised. She knew. His brother shifted in his seat but said nothing. One of my friends started to stand up, but I shook my head slightly. I didn't want a scene. I wanted to think. Then the lawyer, a man I had never seen before, seated 2 chairs away like he was just another guest. He leaned forward, folded his hands on the table, and looked at me. "Mrs. Whitmore, before you review the document, I need to ask, are you aware of the current structure of your jointly held financial accounts?" I stared at him. "What do you mean current structure?" He paused. Garrett's jaw tightened. The room got so quiet I could hear the candle flames hissing. That question told me more than any contract ever could. Something had already been changed. Something I hadn't agreed to. Something I hadn't agreed to. The signs had been there for months. I just didn't want to see them. The first betrayal was quiet, almost invisible. When our anniversary approached, Garrett's mother organized the entire event without telling me. Guest list, menu, venue, decorations. All decided before I even knew the date was set. When I asked Garrett about it, he shrugged. "Mom's handling it. She knows what she's doing." I wasn't consulted. I wasn't included. I was informed, like a guest in my own marriage. The second betrayal was louder. At a family brunch 3 weeks before the dinner, Garrett's uncle asked what I'd been working on lately. Before I could answer, Garrett cut in. She rearranges furniture and picks curtain colors. It's cute. The table laughed. His mother smiled into her coffee cup. His brother's wife covered her mouth with her napkin, trying to hide her grin. I sat there with a piece of toast in my hand and felt the heat crawl up the back of my neck. I didn't say anything. I just chewed slowly and swallowed. But I remember the taste of that toast. Dry, bitter, like something turning stale. The third betrayal was the one that truly broke my trust. 2 months before the anniversary dinner, I logged into our joint savings account to transfer funds for a client project. The balance was wrong, not slightly wrong, drastically wrong, drastically wrong. Over $60,000 had been moved into an account I didn't recognize. I called the bank. They told me the transfer was authorized by the primary account holder, Garrett. He had reclassified our joint savings, redirected funds into a private trust, and removed my name from 2 investment accounts without a single conversation. When I confronted him that evening, he was sitting in his home office with the door half open. The room smelled like leather and cold coffee. He didn't even look up from his laptop. It's just restructuring, Cassandra. Don't make it dramatic. You moved $60,000 without telling me. He sighed. It's my money. It's our money. It's our money. He finally looked at me. His face was blank. Not for long. I stood in that doorway for a full 10 seconds after he turned back to his screen. My heart was pounding. My fingers were trembling, but my mind was clear. That night, after he went to sleep, I sat on the bathroom floor with my phone and started taking screenshots, bank statements, transfer confirmations, account changes. I emailed copies to myself using an address he didn't know about. I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I documented. What they didn't know was that I had been preparing for this longer than any of them imagined. Not because I wanted a fight, because I knew one was coming. Over the past several months, I had quietly gathered every piece of communication that told the real story. Email chains between Garrett and his personal attorney discussing how to restructure marital assets in advance of reclassification. Messages where he referred to my income as negligible and my business as a write-off. Bank records showing unauthorized transfers, reclassified accounts, and removed permissions. So I saved drafts of documents he asked me to sign without reading. I made backup copies on a separate drive stored at a friend's house. I printed key pages and kept them in a folder inside a box of fabric samples in my studio because I knew he would never look there. The smell of fresh linen and cotton swatches masked the scent of paper and ink. They assumed I was powerless. His family, his lawyer, even some of my own friends thought I would just sign whatever was put in front of me and walk away quietly. But power has a quiet way of revealing itself. It doesn't always shout. Sometimes it organizes. Sometimes it files. Sometimes it sits on a bathroom floor at midnight and builds a case one screenshot at a time. I had a plan they never saw coming. And the moment Garrett slid that contract across the dinner table, he set the clock in motion. He just didn't know he was the one running out of time. Her name was Jolene Travers. She used to work as a paralegal at Garrett's law firm before she left under circumstances nobody talked about openly. I met her by accident at a coffee shop 6 months before the anniversary dinner. She recognized Garrett's last name on a monogrammed bag I was carrying. "You're married to Garrett Whitmore?" she asked. I nodded. She sat down across from me without being invited and said, "Be careful with him." That conversation changed everything. Jolene had seen how Garrett operated professionally. She knew his patterns, the way he buried unfavorable clauses deep inside documents, the way he used legal jargon to confuse people into compliance, the way he smiled while doing it. Over the following months, Jolene became my quiet advisor. We met at different coffee shops each time. She never came to my house. She never called from her personal phone. She used a prepaid number and deleted our messages after every conversation. She wasn't doing this for money. She was doing it because she had watched Garrett do the same thing to a former business partner and no one had stopped him. "He counts on people not reading," she told me once, stirring her tea slowly. "That's his whole strategy." As the anniversary dinner approached, Garrett's family grew more confident. His mother started referring to the properties as Garrett's assets. His brother joked about me getting a fresh start. They were already celebrating. They assumed I would fold under the pressure, the way I always had. They assumed wrong. The night before the final legal meeting, Jolene and I sat in her car outside a pharmacy parking lot. The windows were fogged. The engine was off. The only sound was the distant hum of traffic on the highway. She handed me a flash drive. Everything's organized. Dates, amounts, amounts, correspondence. If his lawyer tries to corner you, this is your answer. I held the drive in my palm. It was small, light, but it carried the weight of every lie I had been forced to swallow. I slipped it into my coat pocket and said, I'm ready. The meeting was held at a downtown office building, 12th floor, glass walls, gray carpet, a conference room that smelled like dry erase markers and stale air conditioning. Garrett sat on one side of the table with his attorney, a man named Philip Stokes, who wore a pinstripe suit and spoke like everything was already decided. Garrett's parents sat behind him in visitor chairs, watching like spectators at a trial. I sat on the other side with my own attorney, a woman named Diane Cho, whom I had retained 3 months earlier without telling anyone. The postnuptial agreement was placed in the center of the table. Garrett leaned forward, arms crossed, chin lifted. Let's get this done. She's had enough time. Philip opened the document and began reading key clauses aloud. Asset division, property assignment, income disclaimers. With each line, the terms became clearer. Garrett wanted everything. The house, the investment accounts, even partial rights to future income from my design business. I let Philip finish. Then I opened my bag. I pulled out a thick folder and a flash drive. I set both on the table without a word. Diane spoke first. Before my client responds to this agreement, we'd like to enter into the record a series of financial documents and communications that were not disclosed during the drafting of this contract. Philip frowned. What documents? Diane opened the folder. Printed emails between Garrett and Philip dated months before the anniversary dinner. One read, begin asset reclassification before year-end. Keep her name off the new accounts. Another read, if she asks, say it's routine. Diane read them aloud, one by one. Garrett's mother shifted in her chair. His father uncrossed his legs. Garrett's face didn't move, but I watched the color drain from his neck. Then came the bank records, transfers, removed authorizations, hidden accounts, every number matched. Every date aligned. Philip tried to interrupt. These may have been taken out of context. Diane didn't flinch. Context is exactly what we're providing. I looked at Garrett. He stared at the table. I spoke clearly. You sat in front of 30 people and told me to sign or get out. You humiliated me at our anniversary dinner. You moved our money without telling me. You removed my name from accounts I helped build. And then you brought your lawyer to a dinner party and treated it like a closing. I paused. The silence in that room pressed against the walls. I'm not signing your contract. I'm filing my own. And everything on this table will be submitted as part of the proceedings. Garrett opened his mouth. Nothing came out. His mother whispered something to his father. Philip closed his folder and leaned back. For the first time in 9 years, I watched Garrett sit in a room where he had no leverage. No smirk, no rehearse line, just silence. And I let it stay that way. The weeks that followed were quiet in a way I hadn't experienced in years. Not empty quiet, peaceful quiet. My attorney handled the legal process efficiently. Every document we submitted was verified and time-stamped. Garrett's legal team attempted 2 settlement offers, both of which were rejected because they still tried to minimize my contributions. The court didn't agree with their version. The financial records spoke clearly. The emails were undeniable. The final ruling protected my assets, my business, and my future income. Garrett kept the house. I didn't want it. It smelled like lavender polish and lies, and I was done breathing both. His parents stopped attending the proceedings after the second hearing. His brother unfollowed me on every platform, which honestly felt like a gift. I moved into a 2-bedroom apartment with tall windows and southern light. I set up my design studio in the second room, fabric samples on the shelves. Mood boards on the walls, a desk where I could work without asking permission or defending my choices. Jolene sent me flowers the day the divorce was finalized. The card read, "You read every line." I laughed for the first time in months. I learned something through all of this that I want to say plainly. Dignity and preparation are worth more than fear or anger. I could have screamed at that dinner table. I could have cried in front of 30 people. But instead, I documented. I organized. I waited. And when the moment came, I didn't need to raise my voice. The papers did the talking. I'm not defined by Garrett's opinion of me. I'm not defined by his family's approval. I'm defined by what I built when no one was watching. And I'm just getting started. If someone tried to manipulate or humiliate you, you know how painful it can be. Share your story in the comments. Let this community support you. Subscribe to see how people turn betrayal into strength. Click hype to help this story reach others who need it. Standing up for yourself is tough. If you've been there, subscribe and join our community. Click hype to support others facing manipulation or betrayal. Share your journey in the comments. I want to hear how you reclaimed your power